During a breathtaking undercover camera operation, we found out what became of Natalee and who's responsible. This extremely shocking program will be world news after the SBS 6 broadcast on Sunday. Make sure you're an eyewitness to the most revealing report I have ever made. So says Dutch crime reporter Peter de Vries. Hi everybody, I'm Geraldo Rivera, and Joran van der Sloot, the young Dutchman long suspected in the disappearance on the island of Aruba of Natalee Holloway, on Friday admitted that he did tell an undercover reporter that he was involved in Natalee's death.
It is true I told someone, Joran admitted to a Dutch interviewer. That someone we think is a young man Joran met in a casino and befriended. The friend was actually working undercover for Dutch reporter Peter de Vries, and for several months secretly taped van der Sloot, according to my source very close to Beth Holloway, who has seen the tape.
Look what they've done. What they've done to Natalee, what they've done to a country, what they've done to
you.
Look what they've done.
She was somehow relieved because, well, she was asking herself for almost 3 years now what happened to her daughter, and now she got the answers.
Everybody will see it Sunday, Joran admitted in an interview Friday night. Essentially, the undercover tape shows Joran telling this kid he thought was a friend that in the midst of sexual intimacy, whether literally in the act or not is unclear, Natalee had either a seizure or a heart attack and ultimately stopped breathing, which may confirm various reports that the inexperienced Alabama teenager died on the beach of a drug overdose. According to my source, Joran then frantically disposes of Natalee's body, wading with it into the water as far as he could go, before letting it drift away, presumably sinking. And in the days and weeks that elapsed before a proper search was mounted, the body was carried out of the harbor by the hotels and into the Caribbean Sea. Because Aruba is a one-party consent jurisdiction, the tape was legally made and presumably would be admissible. But what about corroborating evidence? I also spoke with Dave Holloway, Natalee's dad, who has not seen the tape and was not the source of this report. Dave told me that although he's been told the report finally nails Joran, he wants to hold tight before celebrating, because he had been burned so badly in the past. Dave saying that he was convinced last time around that they had the evidence they needed, only to be disappointed. So Dave told me he is keeping his guard up real high. But Natalee's mother, Beth, is convinced the tape proves Joran's involvement. Beth telling the Associated Press, I can let her go now and begin mourning. The 1% of hope I had that Natalee was still alive is gone.
So although he admits making the damning statements that were caught on tape, Joran, his voice cracking now, claims he was only lying to the undercover reporter and still denies having anything to do with Natalee's disappearance. The tape airs tomorrow night at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm joined on the phone now by Joran's attorney, Joe Tacopina, and by Fox News analyst, former Detective Mark Furman, and here on the set by the host of The Lineup, Kimberly Guilfoyle, and by Fox News analyst and former prosecutor, Janine Pirro. Joe, you first. It sounds like not only do they have your client on tape, but he admits making the statements.
Well, Geraldo, he admits making certain statements. Certainly not all the statements I've heard over the last 24 hours about what, was supposedly going to nail him and not nail him and so on and so forth. But, let me just backtrack for a second and say this. We've not heard this tape yet. And before we get to the point where we've already figured out the case is solved and we've been down this road before, let's let this thing air and play out. But let me say this to you, and this is a very important fact, Geraldo. And, I'm on with you, and I, as sharp as you are, I know you're not in Joran's camp, and I have Kimberly, Mark, and Janine. So I have two prosecutors and a detective and little old me. So I'm going to try and hold my own here. But let me just say this. This prosecutor in Aruba, Hans Moss, who I've dealt with and spoken with and met with, has had this tape for over a week. Joran van der Sloot is at liberty and has not been arrested because of this evidence. This prosecutor has arrested Joran on absolutely no evidence in this case. The information that's gathered from this tape is absolutely disprovable as a cause of one, Natalie's death, and two, more importantly, as to what happened. So the prosecution is certainly going to try and do something with this, but they've not been able to act on the tape to put him back in prison. And we know it's a very different standard.
I hear you, Joe. Mark Furman, is the prosecutor just waiting until Monday? I mean, today is Saturday.
Well, Geraldo, let's give Joe the benefit of the doubt here. What he's saying is probably true, but you're not going to rush out there the third time around without verifying. Make sure that you've got a voice print that matches. Make sure nothing's been dubbed to verify there's not been anything edited in the video, the audio, nothing else. That might take longer than a week, might take longer than 2 weeks. So that being said, and then Joe said something about he doesn't admit to all the statements. Well, the only one we care about is to the death of Natalee Holloway, and anything else we really don't care about. So if that's there, and there's 1,000 other things that he doesn't admit to, what he did specifically, he was asked, "Did you make a statement?" "No, I was lying." So let me tell you this, Geraldo. The only time a suspect in an interrogation, when they know they're talking to the cops, make a statement where they take the blame, it's to protect a suspect they're afraid of, a co-suspect, or to protect a loved one. They don't lie and admit to the crime just for the sake of lying.
No, Mark, that's not true. Mark, look, whoa.
That is true.
There is a real phenomenon called false confessions, and I'm not saying that applies here, but let's not say that that's the only
Joe,
time.
if you're hanging your hat on a false confession.
No one's hanging any hat. No one's hanging any hat, guys.
Joe, your client is one of the sharpest guys I've ever come across that's had the term a suspect in a case. He's no joke. He's no slouch. He's highly intelligent. What would possess him to make a statement that is 100% against his interest and confess to a crime of this magnitude if he had absolutely nothing to do with it?
Well, is that a question? Well,
Yeah, that's a question.
All right, let the judge ask another question, then you can give me a compound answer, Joe. Go ahead, Judge.
You know what, Joe, the truth is that he wasn't being interrogated at the time. He was totally off his guard. It's not unlike defendants to slip, which is why you're able to prove cold cases years later. Everybody talks sooner or later, and the fact that he says he was lying validates the authenticity of this tape. They can splice it, they can check to see if it's been doctored, they can try to authenticate it. The fact that he says it's a lie proves that he said it, and the fact that he goes right to the heart of the issue when he's not under interrogation, when his guard is down, is devastating to you.
Right.
Well,
Okay,
can I get my compound answer? Can I get my compound answer?
Go, Joe.
First of all, we don't even know what the tape says or what he's admitting to. Let's let it play first. I'll talk to any one of you on Monday again, number one. Number two, before we go and say this is proof positive that he was involved, one, there is absolute, based on the stories we've heard, there's absolute refutable evidence as to a boat being involved and an individual being involved. The prosecutor knows that. That's why they haven't acted on it, number one. Number two, let us do this. If you want to credit what he's saying is she died of her own, accidental.
Unless he gave her the drugs.
Because of drugs.
He gave her the drugs. He obstructed justice. He disposed of the body, and he inflicted untold cruelty on this poor woman's parents. He jerked us all around for 2 years.
Don't mix and match issues. Is he admitting to guilt or is he admitting to being cruel? They're very distinct and different isures. I say let's do this. Let's wait for the case to come out and then let's deal.
Okay, quick, Mark. Final statement. Go.
Geraldo, that's great if he says that she died on her own, that she had some kind of medical condition or an overdose. The problem is because of his actions, you can't prove if it was in his hands or not. So it's too bad now. You've got to take it on the chin. You want to admit to somebody you think you can trust and you can't. They were an undercover reporter. That's the way it goes.
That's the way it goes. Mark Furman, Joe Tacopino, much more, I'm sure, tomorrow night.